everyone, and welcome to what I believe is episode 5 of the Zero FX, Zero Fucks. Still, at this point in the podcast series, you're still not quite worked out what the fuck it's called, but there we go. Today, we have with us Dave Kennedy, he's like Cyber Jesus, so that's pretty amazing. Thanks so much for coming on, Dave.
That's a first reference I've heard of that. Appreciate the compliment, I think, but thank you so much, and thanks for having me on. This is a great podcast. Can't wait to be on it.
Yeah, you probably don't need to introduce yourself because everyone knows who you are, but maybe give us a little intro so we can hear from you.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Dave Kennedy. Been in the security industry for over 20 some years, which means I'm getting older and older every day. But I started 2 companies, TrustedSec and BDS. We're a global company focusing on cybersecurity. My whole career has always been technical. I wrote the Social-Engineer Toolkit, Magic Unicorn, co-authored the book, Metasploit, the Penetration Tester's Guide. Really big on community and helping other folks out, which is really my big mission is to help new folks coming into the industry, both from a diversity perspective and everything else that's going on in this industry and changing it for the better. And really trying to help, people get better with security and ultimately protect the world has been my whole goal. But been real fortunate. I helped out with the TV show Mr. Robot. And Remy Malik actually mentioned my name on the show, which is really cool. He was impersonating somebody via social engineering and said, "Oh, I'm Dave Kennedy." So that was kind of cool. And I was in a Chris Brown rap video, believe it or not, in the back hacking while there was like dancers doing flips and stuff in the background. Never thought hacking was that cool. So that's awesome. And then testified in front of Congress a few times and really just enjoy this industry, this community, and everything else about it. It's been awesome.
That's amazing.
That's some introduction, isn't it? From Mr. Robot to Congress. Wow.
Yeah, I'll probably never do Congress again. I would be happy to help out on a TV show though. So I'm not big into the whole politics thing. I don't really follow much. So, it was awesome. Great experiences that I think kind of forge you for who you are today, right?
I told you he was Cyber Jesus. There we go.
Never would have thought a kid in my basement being in a rap video and on TV. Who would have ever thought that, right?
Thanks so much for joining us today. So I think we said we were going to talk about kind of mental health in cybersecurity because I think it's quite a big topic at the moment. And I think it's something that impacts a lot of people in cybersecurity, maybe more so than in other industries. So I guess my first question is, what kind of impacts do you see that burnout or imposter syndrome has with mental health? Because I think burnout and imposter syndrome, they come up a lot when we talk about mental health in cyber.
Yeah, I hear this a lot, unfortunately. And, this industry is one that, it's such a new and evolving industry that there's so much happening out there at a given time, right? You see all these hackers breaching companies and all of these things that are happening on the news. And there's people behind, those organizations and companies that are doing incident responses or trying to ramp up a already neglected security program or basically playing catch up for, 50, 60, 70 years of neglect in technology. And so, we have a lot of work to do. And with that, there's expectations. And I think the industry's kind of at fault at this too, because we pride ourselves on, I was up till 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning hacking this or building this or doing that, or, hey, I haven't slept in 4 days and I was able to stop this, breach from occurring, or, in order for me to learn what I need to today, because the skills are moving so fast, I need to put in, 80 hours a week in order to be successful in this career. And I think the burnout aspect of things is very real. I've hit it a number of stages in my career where, I'm just like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore because it's just so overwhelming with all of the different things that are happening out there. And then you talk about an imposter syndrome, which I think is also very related to that type of topic because, we look at a lot of the folks in the industry, these experts that have built their careers and, people are like, I'll never be like that, or I'll never be that person. But, if I, apply myself and just kill myself and my body and my mind and everything else in my life, and I just focus on cybersecurity, maybe someday I can get to that spot or that position. And I think that's a really poor look, and we shouldn't be promoting that type of mentality in our industry, right? At the end of the day, this is a job, and there's no question that in this industry we have so much passion for doing the right thing because it is such an important mission, right? And we're trying to help the world, protect the world. We're trying to protect hospitals from going down. We're trying to protect the oil refineries and everything else that makes this whole world operate and run, manufacturing, et cetera. it's such an important aspect that's never happened before, because technology has never been so embedded as it was today. But we have to put it in perspective that at the end of the day, we shouldn't be killing ourselves. We shouldn't be staying up till 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, or spending 4 nights, staying up and doing things. We have to take a break. We have to take a pause for ourselves. And we also have to recognize that you can be successful and build your career without doing any of that. And that your experiences and your values that you have as an individual are so important to share those, regardless if you're just coming into this industry or you've been here for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. There's no differences. Your experiences can help somebody else get better at what they do. So think of it from an imposter syndrome perspective, is that, it's your experiences that you're sharing. Security researchers are sharing their experiences. Incident responders are sharing their experiences. We're all sharing our experiences to really try to come together to help. So you're contributing to the collective industry getting better by sharing your experience as you go along. You don't have to be, somebody that's been in for 20 or 30 years that has a name or something like that. It doesn't make a difference. Your experiences are what matters.
I think that's really interesting. And I find that resonates with me particularly, because I have a real problem with imposter syndrome. And I also have a problem with imposter syndrome in that, as somebody new to the industry, I occasionally, or possibly even more than occasionally, suffer from imposter syndrome. But I also have an issue with the expression itself. I don't think it does any favors. I think having this generic catch-all umbrella term for this mental health condition, for want of a better description, I don't think it does anyone any favors, because actually imposter syndrome can mean anything from you're new into the industry and you're working with people who've got more knowledge, to you're in the wrong industry, to you're not comfortable with your co-workers.
Yeah.
And I think by just grabbing onto imposter syndrome and putting that on as my protective jacket, I'm actually not making myself or my colleagues aware of the things that are in fact the issue. And I think we need to get away from that. I think we need to be a lot more specific about what the problem is. Why do you feel you don't fit? Because ultimately, all those of us who have suffered from whatever we choose to call it are in that position because someone somewhere felt that we deserved to be there. And we need to find that, focus on that, and build around that. So I really like the fact that you talked about those, how everyone can bring something to the party, and nobody has all the answers. Nobody has all the pieces to the puzzle. It requires that combination of input.
I think with like people who are reskilling into cyber, so Rob is from Caps Lock, which was the mentoring group that we spoke to last week. And they reskill people into cyber. And I think it's really important that we look at like the transferable skills that people have that they bring into the cybersecurity industry. And that's kind of how you can look at combating imposter syndrome, maybe by looking at, it's not just the technical skills. Like having technical skills is absolutely fantastic, but they're not the only skills that we need in cyber. There's 100%. Such a big array of things that we need in the cybersecurity industry to help further our understanding of it and bring new innovations and all that kind of thing. It's not just the technical skills that we need, is it? So having those kind of people who are reskilling into the industry and bringing fresh insight, they're really important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, I think a lot of that also comes down to the people you surround yourself with as well. Coming into this industry, there's a lot of welcoming folks. There's also a lot of negative folks, right? And I think, when you're experiencing, this kind of doubt about yourself or your ability or, your experiences, having positive reinforcements to really push you forward to help you through those types of blocks that you're having with yourself, I think is really important to uplift you. I think uplifting and positivity can really help overcome a lot of the things that we see out there today. In this industry, because of burnout and because of, our own views of, hey, we're just coming through this industry. We don't know a lot of folks, who are just starting to learn, or, as Rob had mentioned, there are a number of different facts that incorporate into what imposter syndrome is. And I think, for me, when I was first coming into this industry, it wasn't as refined or formed as what we see today, right? 20 plus years. And one of the real big instrumental folks in my career were two people. One was not technical at all, had barely any hacking skills whatsoever. And let me rephrase that. He was very business centric, but in security. His name was Scott Angelo. And Scott taught me how to communicate to people, how to take very complex subjects and form it into a way that I could communicate on the news, for example, or testify in front of Congress, or speak at, all of these different conferences, right? The business aspects and the soft skills, which ultimately got me a chief security officer position at a Fortune 1000 company. So the soft skills that I learned from Scott, from a positivity and a role model perspective, I really equate to my success today. And from a technical perspective, I look at Matty Arahony from Offensive Security, or originally created Kali, WAPIX, IWAX, Backtrack, all of those different things. For me early on, he was the person that really pushed me in certain directions of like, hey, this is what I would do, and this is how I do. He was really a positive role model and mentor for me in the technical space. So finding folks like that may already have experience, or is just a community of really good folks that want to help each other, can really, I think, have a big resonating impact on your career, your confidence, where you position yourself, and what you're really good at. Because at the end of the day, when I go to work, I don't want to hate work. I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And I think all of us kind of have that in us, right? It's a fulfillment in life, right? So you have family, you have friends, you have the things that make up who you are as an individual. For me, I would not want to go into work every day hating what I did. I'd want to have some reward, some fulfillment, that I'm actually building something that's going to last, or something that's going to make a change in somebody in a positive way. Those are the types of things I think we really need to focus on the mental health aspects, on positivity, to really uplift when there's a lot of bad things happening in the world, right? And so, I'm not saying ignore the bad things. I'm not saying don't focus on, trying to make the world a better place by combating those bad things. But what I'm saying is, surround yourself with positive people. And ultimately, I think good karma equates to good karma in yourself as well.
How do you find that works with like social media? So you've obviously got quite a large following on social media, like 125,000 followers or something. Do you find that like looking at social media helps you, or do you think it can sometimes be like a negative influence as well?
I think social media, for your own personal benefit, needs to be curated in a way that I'm very meticulous on people that, may be negative that I follow. I just mute them, and I don't block them. I don't let them know that, hey, I'm, not following you or following the stuff that you're doing. But, that's just not a person that's going to uplift me or do, spread positivity with me. And again, I'm not saying ignore bad things that are happening. But what I'm saying is, I like to perceive things that there are a lot of good people out there doing amazing things. And I also want to be contributing to doing good things and helping other people out. And so, I think for me, I've really curated my list pretty well to really not listen to any of the negativity of individuals or people that may be going after others. And, ultimately at the end of the day, if you find real, cancerous or toxic people, it's just as easy to block them and to move on, to go to somewhere different. If they're being that cancerous or toxic and they're causing you to bring you down, it's not worth it to stay with that or to stick with it. I would just move on and go somewhere else, and it's really your choice to go and do that, to really try to tailor social media to you and the type of folks that you would want to communicate and talk to on a regular basis. That's really helped me out a lot. So I really don't have much negativity in my feed. I really try to, if you look at my feeds, I think the only negative thing that I've ever really commented on recently was, the whole Afghanistan pullout, being prior military, really had a big impact to me personally. And that stuff usually never bothers me. I usually don't let, world things that bother me in that way. But for some reason, just being over there, for several years and things like that, it really had a real mental health problem with myself that I had to kind of overcome and get around. And so, but all my other stuff is always positive, always, uplifting. I try to uplift other people. I try to be positive to other people. If they're struggling, I try to chime in, reach out to them via direct message or text them, see how they're doing. Just being that uplifting force that I think we all really can do to other folks that are going through struggles as well in their life. And I just want to say for the record, when I put out that whole thing on Afghanistan, the support that I got from the community was incredible. I had people texting me, I had people calling me, I had people checking in every other day. One of my good buddies that I work with at TrustedSec, David Boyd, must have called me, I think 6 times within 4 days just to make sure I was doing well and checking up on me, because he was a fellow soldier as well. So, it's those types of folks when you're going through struggles or areas, whether it's imposter syndrome or burnout or other struggles in your life, having positive people to uplift you really helps out a ton.
Definitely. You mentioned that obviously you're in the military there, and that one of your colleagues is in the military. And I have found that a lot of people in cybersecurity come from a military background. Do you think there's a lot of comparisons between the the industry, is it an industry between like the industries, and like why do you think so many people transition from the military into cyber? What do you think the kind of connection is there?
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up, Amy, which is, you know, when you look at cybersecurity, it's a relatively new field, right? And we just have recent courses coming out in colleges, cybersecurity degrees, you know, formalized training like SANS, offensive security, other things, you know, they're coming out to help train and teach people. You know, prior to that, there really was no training. There was no book on hacking. You know, we had 2600 magazines, and we had, you know, FRAC and other things that you kind of collectively could put things together with. But at the end of the day, it was still such an immature industry. And really the only formalized industry doing it was the military space. And so, you know, you had the NSA, the National Security Agency, you had obviously our Five Eyes, our allies from a cybersecurity perspective. So, you know, the UK, you know, a number of other folks really kind of set that industry forward, because what they found was they'd get trained professionally. No one else was doing it. And you could literally go into the private sector and do extremely well for this new emerging industry, right? I think that's where you saw a lot of the early on military capabilities bleed over directly into what we see today in the private sector. I know that was for me. You know, when I got out of the military, I spent 5 years in the Marines in the intelligence community. So I had a high level government clearance, did a lot of cyber warfare type stuff. And when I got out, I found that I was in such a hot commodity and desired state coming out of the military that it was easy for me to find a job and really push myself successfully forward. Mm-hmm. I think today, you're seeing a bigger mixture of both military and college degrees and formalized training come through, which is kind of balancing, I think, the act. There's still a lot of military folks coming out that are highly trained. And that's another thing I want to hit on too, is that, there's a difference between experience and coming out of college, right? And there's a big gap in a lot of the colleges' cybersecurity programs, which we've interviewed some folks. They've never, and I'm saying from a technical position perspective, they've never booted up Linux. They've never, looked at Kali Linux. They don't even know the basics or fundamentals of networking or communication protocols.
Do you think that's because like to get into I always say, like, when you're doing a degree, someone's got to plan that curriculum, then someone's got to QA it, and then it's got to go through a load of, I don't know, someone's got to learn to teach it, and the teacher's got to be like au fait with the subject matter before they can teach it to someone. So
you hit it right on the head.
To do that, right? But like industry moves so quickly that how do colleges keep up with that? It's like learning on the job, I think, is the only way that you're going to ever keep up with the demand that's kind of on you in terms of the developments that we've got.
You hit it right on the head, is that the course curriculum is designed from a traditional college program where the professor may not be an expert in individual areas, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're teaching a curriculum that is supposed to, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, that's how colleges typically have worked. What I think that colleges should really be focusing on is that, as of right now, other than the exception of a few different colleges, I would rather hire a computer science major than I would an information security degree, because the computer science majors have gone through, programming, they've gone through networking and communication protocols. They have the fundamentals that I need from a candidate, that I can build them up into their roles in cybersecurity. So these security programs, I really think, need to take more of a fundamental understanding around, operating systems, programming languages, networking, the OSI model, mm-hmm. And looking at all those different areas and saying, we're going to teach them the foundation and basics, as well as the applied concepts of what these different specializations are in the security industry. And then that will be much better to prepare folks. But the issue you run into right now is that, and this is why, Amy, I think you hit the point on the head on the military side house, is why there's so many military folks in this, is that, the military folks have skipped a step. They mm-hmm. have applied learning where they've already done this type of work and already have those fundamentals and foundation and everything else that are already applied. So it's easier for companies to hire somebody with experience, and it is not. Yeah. And that's a problem for us. I don't agree with that. I just want to first and foremost state that, there's this, you see statistics all the time where they're like, oh, we don't have enough cybersecurity professionals and we can't fill these positions and jobs and roles and all these other things. Well, that's true. We can't fill these roles for already established senior level folks to hit the ground running day one. Mm-hmm. There's this massive gap of all of these kids coming in through colleges, but we don't want to train them up and hire them because we already need the people that are already senior in nature as well. So it's this gray area here that we have right now in the cybersecurity industry, where we need to train these folks coming in the appropriate way and to really progress them forward so that they can, hit jobs running, in these different areas. But and we've been doing that at TrustedSec.
I always feel like people don't want to promote the junior people that are in their team as well to like that senior level, because A, their salary is going to exponentially increase, and B, like they're already doing a great job of that junior level role. And if they have to bring someone new in, then like you said, they're going to have to train them up and start reskilling people, because a lot of job specs that I see for like entry level roles, they're not entry level. They're asking for like 2-3 years experience, because they're looking at the person exiting the role rather than the person that started that role. So I think that's probably like one of the big issues that I see in kind of, the whole hiring process in general.
But this is something that's not uncommon in new industries.
Agreed.
Is that people are capable of doing what they are capable of doing. They then get spotted by senior management as being very capable, so they get promoted up into a management or a middle management position. They're not middle managers, so they don't know how to manage the people who are now doing the job that they were doing. So it all sort of comes tumbling back down again, and they have to start rebuilding. And as you say, Dave, you bring people in from the military who have got the experience, but also not just the experience, but the wherewithal to deal with it on the fly.
Yep.
Because one of the things you get in military situations is it doesn't matter if you've never seen it before, fix it, and fix it now.
That's such an important thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because that to me is like, you just got to the center of our industry, which is, you are going into an industry where not everything's already defined, where not everything's been discovered, not everything has been figured out, right? There's no textbook for doing certain things that you do. And that on the fly aspect is so beneficial. I remember when I was consulting when I first got out of the military, they're like, hey, you need to go to this customer and it's a WatchGuard firewall. I'm like, well, I've never touched a WatchGuard before. They're like, yeah, you'll be fine. Go figure it out. I'm like, okay. Boom, went forward and I figured it out, and I did a great job, and I did everything I possibly could to research it, to understand it, a Cisco device, whatever it was. I've never touched it before. Then I figured it out, and you start to build this like well-rounded understanding of everything around you, because you've seen so many different environments, but you have to be on the fly for that. That's such a desirable state for anybody. As an employer, if I see that spark, I know you're going to be extremely successful in this industry, because you have that ability to go down a certain way, and it's going to be fine. You're going to figure it out. You're not going to freak out about it, right?
It's like when I'm when I'm mentoring people, one of the things I always say is, if you get an opportunity to do something, go do it. Go and work it out. Like, I got asked to keynote a conference the other week, and I was like, shit, I don't know what I'm fucking doing. I went, no. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'll just say go and do it, because if I don't, then I'm being a hypocrite because I tell everyone else to go do it. And then I'll just work it out when I get there. Like, it's whenever I got my first job in cyber, they were like, do you know all this stuff about Microsoft security? And I was like, yeah, I know all of that. I knew literally nothing. The first day I'm sat there Googling, like, Azure AD? What the hell is that? But you work it out, right?
I don't know how it is in the US, Dave, but the education system in the UK, and to a certain extent, quite a lot of Western Europe, is not geared to training people to be on-the-fly thinkers.
100% right.
And it's something, I've come from a background where I was an employer for 30 years, and I'd see people come in, great degrees, great experience, great knowledge, no ability a complete and utter fear of being put into a situation without the information. I've recently started myself a new job, and after a week, I said,
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. I mean, it was probably some time ago now, and
when this eventually airs, it'll be about
by the time this airs, I might not even be there. Who knows? But a week into my new position, I actually said to them that I'm not 18 years old, despite my youthful good looks.
I would have never guessed. I'm shocked. But
Thank you, Dave. Okay, thank you. Oh wow. Okay, this is going to the top of the playlist. You know that, right? No, so yeah, I said to them, I'm not 18 years old. You don't need to hold my hand through every single step. Throw me into the swimming pool, because frankly, if I can't swim, I shouldn't be playing.
Yeah.
And but unfortunately, so many younger people, and I'm not trying to tar everyone with the same brush, but so many youngsters want to be handheld through every single stage.
Yep.
And that's not realistic. It's not realistic for employers. It's not realistic for the employees. And it definitely isn't realistic for the industry. because the industry requires people to be prepared to jump in and let's face it, we don't want things to go wrong, but going wrong is how you learn.
Yeah. Our failures are what, I always get asked the question, what would you change 10 or 20 years ago? I'm like, not a dang thing, because I those failures I look back at as who I am today, right? And they've made me better of a person because I've had failures, because I've messed up on things. I remember, I was on a customer site and I downed one of their domain controllers, which shut down their entire company, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, this is the end of my life. Well, it wasn't the end of my life. The company rebounded. They're fine, and we figured it out. Yes, they were unhappy for a few minutes, but guess what? I learned, hey, you probably shouldn't run this exploit on a domain controller at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it's their only primary DNS server. Do a little bit better, next time. So, those mistakes make us for who we are today. And that's, Rob, you hit on the one point on the college side of it. It's the first thing that we have to break these kids from understanding. It's the first habit that we have to break from them is there's no book. Like, there's no book for what you're going to do over here. So figure out how you get to that point, understanding that you have a foundational knowledge of of computers and systems and things to that effect. How do you get to there? And what's the steps of thinking of putting that puzzle together to get your mind that way? Now, yes, there are books for how do I run Responder? How do I run Metasploit? How do I do this? How do I do that? But when you're going into a brand new environment that you've never seen before, and you have no understanding of this before, and the technological debt that they had for being a 50-year-old company or a 10-year-old company or a 1-year-old startup, all of those things are going to come into place where you're going to have to figure something out that you haven't done before. And that's the first thing that we have to break from a habit perspective from colleges, is that there is no course curriculum for this. So how do you do it? And that once you have that mindset, you're going to be successful in everything that you do by far.
You think more people would understand that is the kind of mindset you need, though, when we have like 0-day exploits constantly coming out and you're like, no one's seen this before. Someone's got to fucking work out how to fix it. Literally, it's never been seen in the wild before. Someone's got to think outside the box to try and put like a patch in place or whatever, or stop the vulnerability. So you think it would be more obvious to people, but like you said, I don't think it is. I think a lot of people do just want someone there going, so this is how you do this, and this is how you do this bit. And it's like, that's not, I don't think it's realistic in any job, but especially in cyber.
Absolutely.
So I've got something to throw out here. You both have more experience in the industry than I do. Dave, you have more experience than the world, apparently.
My own experiences, and your own experiences. We all have our own experiences.
So, but here's the thing: the cybersecurity industry doesn't exist in my mind. It's a sort of sub industry of other industries. And not enough people, the people in it know it. The people in it know about it and know what they're trying to defend against. Mm-hmm. But the rest of the world doesn't. And it's almost like some sort of magician's alchemy going on that we don't even need to know about it. And the cybersecurity industry are desperately trying to keep the world running. And the rest of the world are almost laughing at the passion that they have for something that they can't see. So how do you balance that? Sorry, Amy.
No, I was just going to say, I think, did we kind of touch on this last week with Rick, where we were talking about like the different silos that people have, like when they're developing an application, there's like a development team, and then there's a QA team, and then it finally goes to the security team right at the end, because why?
But I'm talking even further than that. I mean, right now in the UK, whilst we are recording this, certainly not whilst we're broadcasting it, but whilst we're recording it, there is a panic buy on fuel because of a supply chain issue, or a perceived supply chain issue. The majority of people have no idea that supply chain even exists. As far as they're concerned, they go to the petrol station, they fill up with petrol. Magic. They don't care how that gets filled up. It just happens. It's magic. Yep. So, and the same thing with the whole cybersecurity element. It's a non-existent product for those people who aren't directly involved in it. So how do we get them more educated, better educated into the importance of the cybersec?
Well, I think, what's changed from, I would say, 15, 20 years ago to today is that businesses incorporate cyber in their entire risk profile, right? So, traditionally it'd be supply chain issues or, HR issues or legal issues that are business risk for us. And they would have this what they call their risk universe, which is all these different risks that could impact our business on a daily basis, right? And which ones are more probable. So, you address the risks that are high critical, and impact likelihood, that are going to occur in the business. So if you have a brand new, product that you're building from a research and development perspective, and you're scared about competitors learning about it, you're going to put controls in place to ensure that intellectual property and the development and everything else goes. Apple does that very well, right? On the iPhone leaks, they're one of the best when it comes to that. Now, granted, they get leaks, but it's much rarer to see that happen in Apple. And they have people that hunt down the leakers and all this other stuff, right? They spend a lot of emphasis on the risk to their products so that, in the competitive landscape, Google doesn't clone their device and make something better. So, cybersecurity is very much the same way, right? Where we're looking at it from a risk perspective and saying, well, there's all these risks that can happen. And now you see all these things happening on the news, and you see, supply chain issues and catastrophic cyber attacks happening from nation states and ransomware and all this other stuff. And the risk now is bubbling up to the point of where we're seeing board members from big companies, small companies, et cetera, individual owners talking about cybersecurity from a risk perspective, right? And what does that mean to me, and how do I protect against it? I think the issue is that, cybersecurity, I think you kind of tiptoed around this, which is cybersecurity touches every aspect of a business. It doesn't just touch the IT aspects of things, right? Or the technological components, because the technological components are built into everything that the company does from a future growth perspective, integration day to day, everything else. And so I think when people look at it, they still think of cybersecurity as, oh, well, I have to incorporate strong passwords and put multi-factor authentication in place and patch my systems, when it's really much broader than that. And they can't grasp that cybersecurity is a complex, ever-evolving program that they have to continuously invest in as part of doing business in technology. And so until we get to that point, until companies can really focus on that long-term strategy and vision, as they do for their businesses, as they do from an HR perspective, as they do from a legal perspective. When you first start a legal department, your legal department's super immature and has no idea what it's doing. And eventually it grows to a point to where you feel very confident in them. Cybersecurity is no different in how you look at that from an organizational risk perspective.
I was watching a video that Jason E. Street did the other week, and it was like where he walks into banks.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of shows you how cybersecurity, it's not just an IT issue, because he's walking into a bank. There's no IT person stood at the door going, you can't come in here.
Yeah.
It's the receptionist, or it's the teller behind the counter or whatever. And he's just walking around plugging USBs into all these machines.
Very familiar with that video. And it's a prime example of being able to go in and do whatever you want to if you have something that's somewhat believable, right? And you have the social engineering aspects, you have the external threats, you have phishing, you have all these different threats that range and vary to your business. And companies very, very much grasp only a little tiny minuscule amount of that risk.
Yeah, my boyfriend, he's a pen tester, and he does social engineering and red teaming engagements.
Yeah.
And he just walked into somewhere the other week because he had a high-vis jacket on. They were just like, yeah, sure, come in. He just they gave him a visitor's pass.
Yep. Look believable and trustworthy. You're all set. No issues at all.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I've spent 30 years before getting into cyber. I spent 30 years in the event and entertainment industry. And I could walk into any concert anywhere in the world with a handful of techniques. So
can you get me into my favorite bands?
It depends who are your favorite bands.
Hand over these techniques, Rob. We need to know them.
Yeah, I know. How do I get to see my favorite band? So
we can't be doing it. We can't. But it is. And the thing is, physical security and cybersecurity obviously are very inherently linked. But people are much more understanding of physical security.
I would agree.
If somebody sees a smashed window, they know that they need to tell somebody about the smashed window so that they can get it boarded and fixed. But they don't think about the same way when they lost their ID card, or when they lent their logon details to somebody, or whatever it might be, because they don't physically see it. It's not as tangible for them, I think.
I don't think it's that they don't physically see it. I think it's that they probably think they're going to get in trouble for doing it as well. And because security teams inherently have been the people that are going to tell you off because you've done something naughty. I think it's kind of I'm not saying all security teams are like that. I know they're not. But if security teams if everyone didn't think the end user is the fucking problem, which is what we see it all the time on like LinkedIn and Twitter. It's like, oh, this user's done this, and it's like, well,
drives me nuts.
It
drives me nuts when we blame the user. Drives me nuts.
Why are we blaming the user? Like I saw someone had written up a pen test the other week, and they was like, well, I only got into the system because their username, because I guessed their password. And I'm like, yeah, well, if you guessed the password and then they didn't have like really shit laps deployed, you wouldn't have got local admin then, would you? Which that user has got zero fucking control over. So you'd only get so far with having the username and password. You don't get to domain admin with a random user's username and password, right?
Well, and I also think that it's a bit of a messaging problem for us as this industry has grown, because it is so new. So you look at other established industries, and they suffer from the same things, like the medical industry, for example. You have a lot of snake oil that happens in the medical industry, where you have this brand new product that's going to revolutionize your, the medical, floor for your hospital, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's just a bunch of BS, expensive BS. That ends up happening from something that's been around for 20 or 30 or 40 years. Mm-hmm. And the security industry, very similar, where, you see a lot of these vendors that claim, oh, we can stop 0-day threats, or we detect zero. No one's seen that before in the wild. You're pumping full of a bunch of bullshit to these companies that think that by implementing your product, you can completely, eliminate all of the other things that you had to do to actually build that security program up, from the ground up. I mean, do you think that there's a product in the law industry or HR industry that's going to solve all your HR problems and solve all your legal problems? It doesn't happen, right? You have to build those programs up. You have to address risk. You have to reduce the impact to your company. There's going to be legal challenges and things like that, but as long as you have a good stance, you can figure it out. Same thing for security. You have to build that up. You have to figure it out what your risk is, and then tailor your security program for that. And yes, you can supplement with things that maybe make your life a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, there's no shortcut for what you have to build in a security program.
Yeah, it's like Symantec came out when I think they're not even a thing anymore, are they, Symantec? I think it bought out. But they had like negative day protection, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's some Minority Report shit right there. That's like, hey, before it actually happens, we predict it, and we stopped it in time. We actually hacked time to stop that from happening.
There are so many things that haven't happened because we stopped them not.
That's right.
You wouldn't even know how good we were before we started.
Right.
They posted about it on LinkedIn, and I just commented like, "You okay, hun?" Like,
you've been drinking, you've been hitting the booze a bit. It's like that. Have you ever seen the new movie that just came out? It's called The Tomorrow War or something like that, where they. It's really good if you get a chance. It's on Amazon Prime, but they basically, I won't ruin anything for you, but in the future there's a war that happens, but they're losing the war, and everybody's like, the human race is basically dying off. So they actually go back in time and recruit all the people that are living, 100 years before to come fight this war in the future. And it's like, it's like obviously crazy, but it was kind of a cool concept. But same thing, it's like, 0 days, as you mentioned, first time being seen, have never been discovered before. Yes, you might be able to determine some of the indicators of compromise post-exploitation perspective that may have happened. But in most cases, you're not going to be going through all of the logic that's going on in an application to understand when it's being misused or abused. It's so complex to think about that. There's no technology out there that does that today. So I think it's a framing issue in many cases for even executives and board members are being fed this stuff. And they're like, well, why aren't we going with this product? It says it can completely stop 100% of the hackers out there. Why aren't we doing it? Well, it doesn't really work that way. And that's a bunch of bullshit. And we actually have to frame this in a very similar way as other departments that we've done before in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But this is exactly the attitude of organizations. We got onto this topic by saying, users are the weakest link. No, users are the link that use your product. Users are also your strongest link. They are the people who create your products. They're the people who create your sales. They are the people who create your brand.
100%.
You can't have it both ways. And if the team of people who are working and doing their very best for you are struggling with something you're asking them to do, change it. Don't keep hitting them over the head with it.
Yep.
Well, it's like
make it better for them.
It's like when organizations ban specific, I don't know, like messaging apps or conference calling solutions. But someone will always want to try and find a way around it. So instead of doing that, why don't you try and ask the users, like, what do they want to use that's easy for them? What makes them more productive? And then you find a way of securing the thing that they want to use. I always think that's a much better way of doing it, because people will just end up signing up to an account whether you want them to or not. You're not going to police everyone doing it all the time. So to stop shadow IT, how about have a discussion with the users, engage with them, and then work out how you can help them work better rather than being a blocker to what it is that they need to do for their role.
And as you said, Amy, if you make everything banned, people will just do it without sharing the information. They'll just make it harder for you to do your job. Dave, I don't know if you're a father. I know Amy and I have got children. Yeah, okay. So, there is no point constantly telling your children not to do something that they're clearly going to do. You have a discussion with them about 100%. How are we going to manage that you want to do this and I don't want you to do it. So how are we going to do it in such a way that we're both happy? And that way you create a dialogue. Your children do what you want them to do safely, and they do what they want to do.
To be fair,
with your knowledge.
I'm not going to lie. In my house, it does not work out like that. Maggie says, "I want to do this." I say no, and then she does it anyway, and I'm like.
In fairness, Amy, I should perhaps be having this conversation with Margot about how she talks to you rather than the other way around.
Oh, really?
I think that's how that relationship works. Listen, would it now be a good time just to take a couple of minutes? I want to quickly catch up on that film that you mentioned, Dave, on Amazon Prime. Should we just quickly jump to the news whilst I grab that?
Bong! Here's the news. Flannel-wearing hipster beer maker Brewdog has been caught out by a basic security problem, and the team that discovered it says the Scottish tipple merchant's response was hardly encouraging. Research by Legends Pentest Partners found that the Brewdog mobile app used the same hard-coded API bearer token to log in every single customer. This would allow anyone to access and use the other people's accounts, including 200,000 Equity for Punks shareholders, as well as to snoop on other personal information. A sobering thought indeed. Did you know that October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month? The time of year we're all supposed to remember that cyber is a thing and we should be aware of. Luckily, top social media organizations have been leading the charge in keeping cyber in the news by either going offline for hours due to misconfigurations a la Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, or by just leaking all of our data and even their own source code, like Amazon-owned Twitch. It's super kind that malicious actors are bringing these issues to light. We never knew they were so keen on user awareness. What next? Ransomware that gets your files back when you've switched MFA on across the board? Fingers crossed. And finally, the United States Department of Justice has announced a leak of information pertaining to the design of the nuclear-powered Virginia-class submarine and the arrest of the alleged leakers. Please forward this letter to your military intelligence agency. I believe this information will be of great value to your nation, the letter stated. Helpfully adding, this is not a hoax, because it kind of reads like it would be. The FBI appears to have decided to string the person in question along. After some clandestine back and forth, plenty of encrypted email, and a payment of 10 grand in cryptocurrency, he loaded the relevant info onto an SD card and left it at a dead drop. The SD card was wrapped in plastic and placed between two slices of bread on a half a peanut butter sandwich, the DOJ's criminal complaint states. Sounds more like Tinker Tailor Soldier Twat to me.
Starting in the southwest, the run of unusually warm weather we've had is resulting in a growing area of high pressure around Exeter. Nothing to do with the weather, that's just on the roads. Historically, of course, this is mining country, so keep an eye out for adventurous types wearing head torches. Moving on up into the Midlands, we see thick cloud cover, no precipitation to speak of, just badly named products and poorly designed user interfaces. The picture changes as we move further east. Keep an eye out for sin flooding, especially in low-lying areas. More or less the same picture moving north, though obviously wetter, colder, and different accents. Don't expect too much change as we move into the weekend. Expect patches of sunshine and broken cloud with the occasional shower. Misty in the mornings and, of course, a high chance of ransomware. Thank you.
And we are back from the news. Hey, so Dave, last time I spoke to you prior to the news was when you came to the Caps Lock group that I'm mentoring, and you kind of talked to them about how you got into the industry and that kind of thing. And obviously Caps Lock is a way of people getting into cybersecurity, but you are running a program as well, right? That's helping people get into the industry. So do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, when I was a kid growing up, I won't go into my full story, my history. But when I was growing up as a kid, I came from a very, lower poor income type of family. So, I grew up understanding what, sifting through the couch cushions looking for money so we can pay rent was, and, all those different things that kind of went during those periods of time. But my parents were amazing. They, strong role models in my life, and I'm very thankful for that. But one of the things that I didn't really have a whole lot of access to, early on was technology. And we see that in a number of schools in the poverty-stricken areas, most specifically inner city schools and things of that effect, where, kids don't have laptops. They aren't, experiencing that. And so, what I looked at doing personally was, well, how do we fix that issue? And then how do we also bring new folks into the security industry and train them up appropriately so they can be successful in their own career? And so the first thing that I did most recently was I made a substantial donation, but also ongoing support and my time on their technology board of building what they call and this is kind of funny, but it's the David Kennedy Center of Gaming and Leadership. So it's a facility for, predominantly African-American individuals. It's 98% African-American school that I came from. And, inner city school, net median income is $30,000 in the US, which is $20,000 less than the national low average for them. So very poverty-stricken location. And that's where I graduated from. So I wanted to kind of make that my staple of where I started this, but my plan is to hopefully roll this out to other schools and locations as well. And the best part about that was we're giving, because of that esports gaming component, there's now scholarship opportunities where there never was any before. So kids are actually getting scholarships to school, to college for higher education, where they never would have been able to afford that in the first place because of the technology impact that these kids now have access to. So, I think last year there was 19 new scholarship opportunities created for these kids, which is absolutely fantastic, saying that, hey, I made a difference in somebody's life where they could actually, go to college and have an opportunity they never had before on the technology side. And then coupling that with what we're doing at TrustedSec, we started our junior program piloting it about 2 years ago. And we had some really big success with that. You talked about, not wanting to promote juniors to seniors. What's interesting of what we've done is, when a junior comes in and they have no experience whatsoever or very little experience, or, especially hands-on or applied, they come in at more of a junior level rate, so that, so we can teach them and train them, and it doesn't break our bank as a company to grow. But we course correct those salaries once they're at a position where they start to actually provide benefit to the organization. So, you come in as a junior, but you quickly excel salary-wise to a specific area to be at that level that the industry is demanding right now. So, we had two individuals, Logan Sampson and Kelsey Segru. Kelsey came from Kent State University. She's in the web application team. And then Logan just recently moved over to the red team. And they both, came through that program where they had some college, experience and excelled so well. And the kudos to them. They're the ones that did this, right? Their drive, their passion, their ability to think outside the box and learn really made them successful in these programs. But they're now senior level resources doing extremely well financially as well as everything else in their lives because of that. And so this last year, in 2021, we really kicked off our junior program, and we have 9 folks going through the junior program right now. And our goal is to continuously increase those to, heck, I would love to have 500 people at one time. I think Jason probably just had a heart attack when I told him that, but the program. But our goal with these kids coming out, or it doesn't need to be kids, someone that's bridging over from the military, or somebody that's trying to make a career shift into something different. Our goal is to train them the right way so that they can go out to the security industry, whether it's at TrustedSec or somewhere else, and be successful in the career and help promote all the D&I initiatives that we have for this industry, getting people from different areas and locations, race, gender, whatever it ends up being, coming into this, this welcoming organization and industry, and really getting them the right type of experience to be successful in their career. So my drive and passion is really on that area right now, and trying to help out as many folks as I possibly can. Plus, again, facetiously, it helps TrustedSec too, because we have some amazing folks that we can teach up, that now we can apply to our growing company as well. So it's a benefit for all of us, both short, mid, and long term.
But I think that's a really good attitude to have, and it's obviously an attitude that your organization has from like the top down.
Yep.
But I think there's quite a lot of organizations where they've got senior level people in, and they don't want people to overtake them in terms of like knowledge. So sometimes they're like I call them gatekeepers. I'm sure that is. Yeah. I think that's the actual term for them. Yeah, like there's lots of gatekeeping in cybersecurity. Like I'm a big fan of just breaking down all the barriers. I'm like, if I've got connections that can help you get a job, go and talk to my connections. Like use my name, wherever as long as you're not being a dick about it, use my name wherever you like to. If that's talk to someone who can get you a role, I don't mind at all. Like I can't teach people that much. I can probably help them with some sales shit, maybe. But if I could teach people stuff, I would do, because I always think if I'm teaching someone else something, I'm not getting any stupider. I'm the same amount of clever just because I've told someone else what I know.
Right.
But they might ask me a question that then I have to go away and research, and then I could get more clever off it, but I'm never going to get less clever off of it. So I like the whole gatekeeping thing just blows my mind, because I just think what are you gaining from doing that?
I think in one retrospect, my brain doesn't work that way, so I can kind of see that it's a threat, right? In some cases to some folks, I think. But the sign and to me, that's a sign of a poor leader, right? Mm-hmm. Because if your team success, your team success is a direct, equation to you as a leader. And if you don't want your team to expand beyond your knowledge and you as an individual, your team's not going to be successful. I learn something new every single day. And believe me, I have so many, everybody in my company is more brilliant than I am in every way, shape, or form. And I want them to be more brilliant, and I want them to succeed so I can learn more on top of that and see them succeed and have the reward that, hey, because they came here at this company, I was able to change their lives or to make them successful in their career, even when they go somewhere else. I've had a number of folks leave. We don't have very many, which is a great thing because we take care of our folks. But when we do have people leave, they're my good friends. I help them get the job. They're always welcome back. And it's just one of those things where, taking care of others, again, good karma equates to good karma back on yourself. And I think we really need to look at it from a leadership perspective and say, these are the future leaders. Like, you're not going to be here forever. Like, this life has a fixed time, at least for now. The science is getting there. We might be able to fix aging eventually, but at least not anytime soon. So, we have a finite time in this earth. Why not teach your future generation of leaders to be stronger so that ultimately, they can take a position, you can take a step back and see all of that grow and reap the rewards and benefits for everything that you've been able to accomplish in your career, seeing all these folks being successful in theirs. That's the reward. I mean, I don't understand the whole gatekeeping aspects of things of like, hey, if they're coming from my job or they're going to impact me. No, that's not the case. You're making your team stronger and better and awesome and doing something that you can say, this is my legacy right here that I left. Is this team.
I also think if you're worried about someone coming for your job, maybe you're not that good at your job.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Alternatively, I love it when people want my job because I consider that to be a compliment.
Means you're doing something right.
If people are looking at me saying, I want to do what Rob's doing, I want to take over from Rob, well, fantastic. I'm glad that you aspire to do what I'm doing. I hope you can do it better than me.
One thing I learned very quickly when I started TrustedSec was, to give responsibility to people that could handle the responsibility. Mm-hmm. And, I was very quick on, I hired one of my good friends that ended up, being head of sales, and he, took over the sales component that I was doing. And Martin Boss, who runs my entire consulting practice, I gave him my responsibilities of running the consulting practice, and over time, I have loosened myself up so that I can focus more on the strategy and vision of the organization, which is what I really enjoy doing. And by the way, I can still hop on red teams or engagements whenever I want to have fun, to hack into whatever I want to. And I don't have to be the best kid on the block because I just have a badass team that I learn from every time. So then I can take some nuggets out of that and say, well, cool, I learned 10 new things. I'm better today than I was yesterday, and move forward. So for me, it's freed me up to do the right stuff that I want to do because I've given the responsibility to the people that can handle it. And they're incredible individuals as well and have grown as well. Martin is our chief security officer and in charge, a VP of our entire operations over at TrustedSec. And he's one of those guys that he wasn't, when I first met Martin, he wasn't even in security yet. He wanted to make that break into security, right? Mm-hmm. And to see him grow, to see him excel, and it's, again, he is incredible. He deserves every ounce of that position that he gives, just from his dedication, his passion, his culture of people, loves taking care of people. I mean, that's what you want to see from your team, from your leadership, from anything else before you go somewhere else or you leave your legacy on the place. So
it's like that whole thing where people say, like, there's like a meme about it, I think, where it's like the CEO says to the CFO, like, what if we train all of our people and they what if we train all our people and they leave? And it's like, well, what if we don't train all our people
and they stay?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Yeah. Like, if you have nobody there to do the work, what are you gonna do? Like, it makes no sense. Yeah,
it does make no sense. And it's interesting. I mean, the whole conversation we're having now about leadership leads on to something that I think is important. You've mentioned it already tonight, Dave, and we perhaps could have spent more time on it. Typically, we could have spent more time on everything we've talked about. But burnout, which is a real big issue. Yeah. And from my perspective, I see this quite often. And burnout, as far as I can see, comes from, to an extent, it comes from the leadership. Because if somebody is working 80 hours a week, then actually they're doing two people's work. And the leadership need to be aware that they're not being realistic about the amount of work that needs to. So, we talk about burnout. Burnout is something that you obviously know about. What are your thoughts on that? How can we, as an industry, be better?
You hit on something that's so important, Rob, which is it comes from leadership. Expectations of not understanding the impact that you have on people and personnel and their lives and their families. That is such an important concept that we lack, I think, in security, because we expect this magic stuff. And it goes right into your topic before of, they look at cybersecurity as this magic thing, when it's people, an army of people trying to keep this company operational alive, to defend all these different things that are out there.
Yeah, I think last week when we spoke to Rick, he said something like the average SOC in an FSI company, I think it was in 2017, they had enough work it was like 40,000 hours of work that someone had to do just to triage all the incidents in a 24-hour period.
It's not possible, right? It's not possible to sustain that for a long period of time. And so one thing that we have done, and this is why we have such a high retention in our companies. One thing that we focus on specifically in consulting, which is a very high burnout, by the way, consulting, traveling all the time, away from your families, different stressors, toxic customers, you name it, you have a wide array of stressors on top of the job, the reporting, the project management, everything else that kind of goes around. It makes this thing that you have to do all garbled to a product that you have to get out to a customer. It's a stressful work environment, right? And so, I came from consulting. I recognize that. I burned out in consulting because of it, because the owner that I previously worked for treated people as bodies. He'd always say, oh, we can just get more bodies. We can just get more bodies and do this. We weren't people. We weren't individuals. We weren't humans that were actually going and doing this. If you faulted and you didn't put in 80 hours, then we could just replace you with somebody else that will work 80 hours was the mentality. And that's very common, unfortunately, in our industry, is that your success is rewarded based off of the amount of time you spend away from your family and your home. Mm-hmm. And so when I started TrustedSec, I vowed that would never happen. So first and foremost, one of the big things that will happen in consulting is that you typically put people on multiple engagements. So, they'll be running 3 or 4 or 5 consecutive engagements at a time, because guess what? That maximizes profit, right? So now you have a consultant, instead of, billing out 80% to now utilize 150%, and you're making more and more money. Doesn't happen. So we only do 1 engagement per consultant at a time, which is so good, by the way, because they can focus on that one customer and do the best work for that one customer, period. But on top of it, they're not having to juggle the stuff around, right?
But so a couple of questions. A, has the pandemic, do you think, affected this because people couldn't go out traveling, so they weren't working? And also, B, if you've got 1 consultant on 1 engagement, I'm not going to ask you about your business, but is that affecting profit? How does that affect your profit margins? What do you earn less per consultant, so you have to employ more consultants, or what? How does that work?
Listen, from a profitability perspective, could I make more money by doing that? Absolutely. Is it the right thing to do for my people? No. So if you look at our top objectives as a company, we have strategic initiatives that we look at of both short, mid, and long term of what we want to accomplish from our companies. Mm-hmm. Number 1, period, across the entire company's culture is number 1. From me to my COO to Martin to Justin to Chris to Aaron, everybody on the team, we all focus on culture, number 1. So the decisions that we make, are they going to impact people in a negative way? If they are, then we're not doing it. Mm-hmm. What can we do to make it better? In fact, we started a culture committee that, it may sound lame, but It's from different parts of the organization, everything from sales to marketing to our consultants, both junior, senior, everything above. And it's a no bullshit committee where you can submit things anonymously or in person. And we look at things every year, and we create out things to make the company better or make changes in a better way to help our employees out. I think COVID definitely had a major issue on the personalities of things, of not seeing each other in person and stuff like that. But we were primarily a remote company anyway, so it didn't have a huge impact. So, what we did every week is we'd have an online, lunch and learn, or, we'd all, come together every single week and just talk to one another, see how everybody's doing, drink beer, whatever, and hang out and have a good time. Right. And I think, a pulse on your organization, and anybody that is just starting day one has an opinion that could change the company for the better, and they're empowered to do that, will make you a successful company, and also really steer away from that whole burnout aspect. Because, when we tell everybody, every single quarterly meeting that we have, every single biweekly meeting that we occur, across different department levels, that if you are burning out or you're going through a challenging time in your life, that is not a sign of weakness. To reach out and to tell somebody that, is a sign of strength. And how can we help you not burn out? So we've had folks that are like, man, I just had a lot going on. I got backed up on engagements. Guess what? Next week, their engagement's gone. The week after that, their engagement's gone. So that we clear it out, we move it over to different consultants. They have time to recoup and relax and chill and get back into that mental clarity that they need to be performing at a high level. And it's not a sign of weakness. And we continuously pulse the company, completely anonymous surveys, understanding where, we can get better at. And we listen and we task those out, and we build those out in the company over time. It's this evolving process, very similarly like security, that we do for our culture and our people so that they don't burn out. It's so important to me. When we had one employee, a number of years ago, and I don't know who it was. I have no idea who it was, because again, anonymous surveys, but you can clearly tell that they were burning out. And, I had an all hands meeting the next day. I'm like, listen, I don't know who you are, but I just want to let you know, please let us know so that we can fix these issues that you're going through, to accomplish it. And here's the things, by the way, based off of your responses, that we're going to do to try to address this. And it was one person out of, at that time, I think it was like 70 people, we've grown since then. And that's a good metric, but it's still one person that we can help out, not burn out in some way, situation, or form, based on either the personal stuff or what's going on in real life. So, or work. I wouldn't say personal isn't real life. But those are the things that we really try to do to focus on burnout. But it also, that last thing I'll hit on in this one, sorry to be long-winded, but it has to come from you as well. You have to recognize that you're burning out and that you have the symptoms of burning out. And that's, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do my work. I'm procrastinating. I'm focusing on other things. I get a pit in my stomach when I think about it. All these things can lead to burnout. And so every quarter, Kim, who runs our HR department, gives a debrief of what burnout symptoms are and what to look for. And again, how to reach out to us to help promote you in a way that you're going to be successful and not burn out, because we don't want that. We don't want that for any of our employees.
No, I think
it's so refreshing to hear as a business leader, the way you're supporting your employees through this, regardless of the industry that we're in. It's just so encouraging to hear genuine leadership.
So important for me.
It's important for everyone who works in a company that the leaders genuinely mean it. It's not just a box ticking exercise. It's not just a case of we've got our health and safety and our mental health awareness ticket. Really caring for your employees makes the difference, because it means your employees care for you and will support you. I don't like to talk about companies as families. They're not. Families are families and companies are companies. But when you create a genuine relationship with the people you work for and work with, it makes everyone's lives better. Yeah. Really, if you haven't written a book yet, Dave, you need to.
I appreciate that. I've thought about it quite a bit. I think, applying what you learn from your own personal experiences can always help others. My whole purpose in life, this is not a facade. It's not something that I'm like saying one thing and doing the other. You can talk to any of our employees. Like, when we hired a new COO to come in, a chief operating officer, which is, basically a number 2 in my company. And we went through the interview process, and all of our leaders went through the interview process, and we spent probably an absorbent amount of time that we probably didn't need to, but on focusing on that person's ability to understand our culture, and that would be number 1 for us moving forward, no matter what, including profitability margins or anything else. Culture is number 1. And as long as that's understood and expected, and our decisions are based off of our people, then we can't go amiss. We can't steer the ship in the wrong way. We'll always continue to grow and do awesome things because we have our people focused first, and that people are humans and we make mistakes and we get burned out and we have things that happen in our lives that cause major issues or health ailments, whatever it ends up being. We go through these bumps and ebbs and flows and everything else. And it's on us to recognize that and to help our folks, get better and to have a happy life and everything else that goes along with it. And I hope to be able to replicate that, for other organizations and things like that, because if you focus on people, your company is going to be successful. It's going to work. It's going to operate. It's going to do a great thing. And guess what? It's one of the most rewarding and fulfilling things that you can ever possibly imagine, because you care for your people. You're helping them day in and day out. You're changing people's lives. That's the most rewarding thing you can have in life, period.
Yeah. I think that's, like Rob said, it's a really refreshing thing to hear. I mean, I work for a company that's kind of got the same mindset, like
awesome,
really focused on culture and making sure people are happy at work. So yeah, I am in total agreement. But I think, unfortunately, we are at the end of the podcast because we talked a lot.
We did talk a lot. Sorry.
We did talk a lot. No, I loved it. It was great. I've never listened to anyone more intently.
Let's be honest, a podcast that people weren't talking during would be
that's
really
actually a good point.
I think what we're doing
people
is
staring at each other awkwardly wouldn't go well.
Yeah. I mean, we could do that for the outtakes. Anyway, so have you got a final thought? I mean, I think we were supposed to talk about mental health, but we covered a lot of topics. So if you have a final thought on anything that we have covered in today's discussion,
take care of yourself. You only live this life once. Your mind, your body, everything else that goes along with it. I'm obviously big on the whole fitness thing as of late. I made a whole change in my path, but I can tell you, taking care of my body, the exercise and everything else has only helped me better. For my mental brain as well. Your mind and body go hand in hand. So take care of yourself. Don't burn yourself out. Recognize when you start having issues that, around, mental health issues, around burnout, around, areas around imposter syndrome where you don't feel like you're confident in yourself. Or again, Rob broke it down. It's much more complex than just one specific thing, but, have people to surround yourself with to be positive influences or role models that can help uplift you when you feel that you're doubting yourself or that you can't do something. And believe me, I'm learning something new every day. I'm still a newbie in this industry, even though I've been in for over 20 years. I learned something new from every single person that comes into here. Please share your experiences. Please share yourself, and then be honest and gentle and kind and, accepting of others. I think ultimately, if you can live by those principles, you're going to do awesome in this industry and be super successful. So
thanks, Dave. That was brilliant.